Courage and faith. I wake up with this thought in my head about courage and about, about what you do. That's the right thing. And if you read a lot of the biographies and that of people who had to use courage at a certain time in their life, they were always nervous, scared, some frightened, anxious, worried about the outcome. It's natural to worry about the outcome. The outcome is the thing that hasn't been proven yet, and your courage is what proves the outcome. You have to do the thing that makes you feel worried, I suppose. I found for myself that the stronger I felt about something, the more desire I had to do what I felt strongly about. So there's this building up here in your heart of what's the right thing to do, what's the wrong thing to do. I have an instant kind of courage where I see someone victimizing someone and I get really angry really quickly. And I have to control myself, and I've done very well over the last 20 years, stopping myself from just losing control. And I can now stand in control in a situation like that and not do anything. But there are times I've wanted to, you know. There's this guy who I know is manipulating this young woman, this guy we call the Weasel. He jogs around the lake, and when I see him go around the lake, it takes a lot of control not to just smash him in the face. So he actually he has this really arrogant, smug look on his face, and he's a very nasty, evil person. And when he has that look on his face, it's so hard not to smash it off. One time he come across the bridge and he landed flat in his face at my feet, and that was interesting. It took a lot of my anger out towards him because it was fun seeing him flat in his face and at my feet. But that's a different kind of courage. I see on the internet you have all those photos, and in the photos, you type in the word courage, and it shows a person on a cliff, at the edge of a cliff. It shows a person doing some extreme sport. It shows a lot of people in really dangerous but utterly stupid positions. And you're not supposed to do that sort of thing. It's Jehovah's Witnesses who have a thing that says you don't take foolish risks, and it's right. You're not supposed to, but you are supposed to take risks on the important things that are important to you, that are important to your heart and soul. Because if you don't take risks for those things, you'll always hate yourself. So it depends on the person, because to some people, hurting children is fine. They don't see anything wrong with it. Those people, in my opinion, we have a natural set standard of moral and decent standards, and hurting the widows, the people who can't defend themselves, children, hurting little animals, and being unfair, cruel, and mean, and all those things is wrong. But some people don't see that, and they actually think they're doing the cruel things or the cowardly things is courageous. It's like someone with a gun shooting an animal miles away and then coming back and putting its antlers on the wall and saying how great they were. It's like the in Africa the safaris where they sit in a high caged truck and they shoot a lion, and they take the carcass back to America and put the head on the wall and say, I shot a lion in an African safari. You get those. I remember as a teenager, there were a lot of guys who believed they were courageous, and they did gutless things. And it was sad. There was a guy in Hamilton who got in a fight, and a bunch of young guys. This guy went up and they had a fight, and he knocked him out. Then a bunch of young guys ran up and kicked him in the head and in the body. And the next day they all went to school saying that they'd had a fight with this guy and they booted him. And so they were getting fake courage from, and then you get the ones who straight around telling everyone they've beaten someone. I've been through an awful lot of this. A lot of people have gone around saying they'd given me hidings and they threatened me and all this sort of stuff, and a lot of it was just pure fantasy. I think when people tell stories like that about you, it's like probably 95% of lies. And the 5% maybe moments of courage, maybe something happened, maybe it didn't, but it's very seldom that I've discovered in life that people will actually physically try to fight you. They're all talk. And so when you think about courage and you have to do courageous things and you think about people being physically violent and stuff, especially in public, you'll find they're not going to. It's mostly just false bravado, big talk. And some people get off very much on their big talk, and it really makes them think that they're amazing. It's the same with gangs. You walk down the street and there's a bunch of gang members walking to you with patches on. They're not going to do anything, and they don't want to cause trouble as much as you don't want to cause trouble. But their egos tell them that they can take everyone on. It's quite funny. Courage itself is the act of doing the important thing that's the most important thing to you. There is an easy way out, there's always an easy way out. The easy way out is often just to walk away. So, a good example of this is something that you're not involved in. And you walk down the street and you see something happen, you think, well, that's none of my business, and you turn and walk away, even though you can hear someone screaming or crying. It's hard to walk away. I got into trouble for defending a woman at a school whose her boyfriend had been unfaithful, but this big black guy, dark skinned guy, and they were yelling and he was getting very threatening. So I just walked up to a gate. The fence, there was a fence between me and them, big high one, but there was a gate right next to me. And I leaned up against the fence and I just put my hands up on the fence like this and I just watched them. And they were arguing. He kept looking at me and he was getting really nervous. I was in uniform and he kept staring at me and I just stood there staring at him. And then finally he was getting really aggro, and I just looked at him. He turned and looked at me and stared at me, and I said, "I'm not going away." And he realised that, even if he did touch her, there was a witness. So, and he also didn't know what I could do. So he turned and he said something nasty to her. He was furious with her because he'd been caught out having an affair. It's like the woman who did the character assassination on me. She was furious. I didn't buckle down. But this guy's girlfriend or wife or whatever whoever she was on the right. And in the character assassination, I was on the right. But it's amazing how nasty other people will get when you're on the right. But it's also quite amazing how cowardly they are. He didn't touch her. And the character assassination was all done in the shadows because the woman who did it, and all her family, and especially her big 6-foot husband, and a whole heap of other people, not one of them's ever touched me. Because they're just cowards, all of them. So you get people like that, and sometimes you have to send because I couldn't sit there and watch that woman get hurt. So And it was more important when I discovered in their arguing that he had an affair on her. She was devastated and furious. So therefore, she was in the right. So if he'd hit her, that would have been just so wrong. So um, I wanted to, do that, but I was told by my boss I was not allowed from that moment on to get into any more domestic disputes. He said no more. He said you call the police and you keep out of it on the job. So I'm not too happy about that. Um, but if he'd actually hit her, I would have ignored what I was told and just done the right thing. Doing the right thing is like what is John Wayne says, saddling up and going anyway. You may be frightened, scared, but saddling up and going anyway. And it's a case of knowing what's the right thing to do, and you got to see yourself in the equation. You got to say to yourself, can I live with myself if I do nothing? How will I feel about myself if I do the cowardly thing? A lot of people who are bullies or big mouths, the reason they are is because they're cowards. They can't go out and do the brave thing, so they make up for their cowardly behaviour by mouthing off. And I know of cases where guys live with women where they've said the whole time they were living with them that they'll go out and they'll defend them against blah, 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 but always behind the other people's backs. And people who've known them previously know that they're cowards. They won't do anything. But at home, with no interfere, they're brave and they're big talker. They run down the other people and they always make it that they're the heroes. So, that's life. But once you realize that with fear, 95% of what you fear never happens, a large amount of what you fear going wrong doesn't go wrong. I've been stunned by that since I became a believer in God. The amount of times I had to do meetings and I was frightened and weary and scared and anxious, and they'd always come out right. And it's just, everything may not be absolutely perfect, but it definitely bends heavier in your favor, especially if you believe in God. And you live the life that's good, that God accepts and God understands and God backs you up and supports you. So courage is doing the thing that you know that you should do for yourself, and it makes you can't live with yourself if you don't do the right thing. If you don't take the courageous steps, you're going to be so unhappy and so miserable with yourself. You know that you must do them. And so courage is very important in our status of well-being and our how we see ourselves, how we feel about ourselves, how we want to believe that we are. So no Dutch courage, no false courage, no pretending and lying to ourselves, actually being the strong person that we are. And I've known of people who've gone up in a fighting situation and they've actually been hit and they still stand there and they don't fight back and they reason with the person. It's quite amazing to see someone with that kind of courage. And they reason with the other person and the other person ends up realizing they're wrong and they see that the other person is not going to hurt them and it works out fine. So, courage it's an amazing thing. In the world we have today with a huge amount of people who are immature because society is toxic and dysfunctional, that huge amount of immaturity breeds huge amounts of cowardice. And wherever you find cowardice, you find big mouths. Huge amounts of people saying how they're going to beat someone up, how they're brave, how and when you see someone sitting on a cliff or standing by a cliff or doing some extreme sport, everyone raves out on how courageous they are. They're not courageous. Playing a game of rugby doesn't make you a hero. It doesn't make you courage. Hollywood and the movies have painted a picture of fake courage and fake heroes. The real heroes are the single mums looking after the children and really hard situations and getting up each day and looking after the children when they're sick, with tears in their eyes and exhausted. Those are the heroes. And providing food for the children and going without a meal that night. Those are the real heroes. And I had a friend. He got in a relationship with another woman, both single parents, and I was a single parent. They came to visit me one day, and he turned around and started going on about how he was struggling and how hard life was for him as a single parent and all this. And what he was doing was it was well known that single parents struggled, and especially when they didn't have a job. So he was saying how he was like the rest of us, but his new wife, and I had been through hell. We'd gone without food, we'd struggled and all this. He had a $5,000 visa, and it was one of those, he could just buy whatever he wanted. Whenever he got into debt, he'd just take his visa to his mother, and his mother would pay whatever was owing on this visa. So at the end of the month, if he owed $3,000 on something he bought, then she'd pay it, and he didn't have to pay it back. What he did try not to get into debt. We all do. But when he got to those desperate times, he'd just get her to pay it. He couldn't understand what we were talking about when his wife started arguing with him and the relationship done. He was struggling to understand how we were more heroic than he was, how we were more brave, how we'd be through more hell for our children than he had. And when you get people that haven't experienced the same hell you've been in, they think they're heroes. They think they're brave. They think they're courageous. And he just couldn't get it in his head. I would imagine she would have, because they're still together, he would have convinced her over the last 15 years. But it was interesting to watch someone who had not been through what I'd been through trying to say he was in the same situation as I was, and he wasn't. And he'd been through the same suffering that I had, and he definitely hadn't. He'd brought stuff for his home that I could definitely not afford. Like if he, back when I was on welfare, if he needed a fridge, he would have bought a brand new fridge. I had to get second-hand fridges and stuff like that. So it was very interesting. This video's probably getting a bit long. But anyway, so people have a perception of their courage, which is real. So they'll tell you they'll go and defend you, or they'll go and do something, or they'll go and fight someone, or they'll be brave. That's based on their fake perception. And there's another thing, like with me with the 13 years of character assassination. If one of the guys from the character, not the woman, but one of the guys from the character assassination came out to me and threatened me. Say one of the, they're from a criminal group. Say one of the girls from the criminal group came to me for help, and they turned up the mail turned up my doorstep to, sort me out. Well, I got 13 years worth of pure anger at the way they treated me, and all they'd have to do is get me in a fighting situation. And I doubt I'd hold back. So you've got hurt, bitterness, frustration, anger, and all these things boiling inside your soul. And the other person may know how to fight, but they don't have any of that. They're just arrogant. So when they strut up your door to them, yeah, you want to fight? The other person gives them the hiding of their life. People don't understand that when they hurt people, they create a lion inside them, a fire, a power that will totally obliterate them. And the person, and if the person's defending someone, there's another point. I'm going to go and get that person, but this person's defending them. And this person thinks, no, you're not touching them, and that makes a huge difference as well. So, and when you're defending what you love, that's even more important. So, you get these, you get these things, these emotional feelings, beliefs, what they create within you, and it creates more courage. And then there's the defense of children. If you're in a position where you could defend children in the future, that creates determination, anger, and I'm like, because a lot of people get the choice of a what they call a pussy life, where you're like a cat, you're fed, you're looked after, you live in comfort, you don't have to do anything. It's all there presented for you. Or you have to fight for what you want and what you want to believe in. So you can walk off and have the pussy life and marry someone who's got a lot of money and status and all that sort of stuff, but still be part of the bad group. Or you can do the right thing and go and fight them and make things right for your own conscience, for your own good, for your own well-being and self-belief in yourself, which is far stronger than a lot of other things. When you sit there and you say, "No, I'm not doing that." Kind of reminds me of the guy in the movie. Many years ago, I saw it when I was younger. It was a black and white movie, I think, and they were on a ship, and there was this ship's fighter, and there was a shorter guy, stocky guy, and they had a punch up a fight, a boxing fight. Now, I don't think they used gloves, and they fought, and the bigger guy gave the younger guy, a smaller guy, hiding. And this went on. They must have fought about 10 times, and every time everyone's going, the smaller guy was, "What do you do? Why do you keep getting in the ring with him? Like you're an idiot." But what he was doing was he was learning all the other guy's tactics. And then one day he got on the ring and totally thrashed the other guy, the bigger guy. The bigger guy was just got the hiding of his life. That was pure determination. There was a lot of, the big guy was a bully. He pushed him around. He made his life miserable when they weren't fighting. He was just an outright prick. And the other guy was determined to destroy his ego so that he never hurt anyone else again. And he didn't. So don't be like the horse that's broken in. When the horse is broken in, it becomes a slave of humanity. When they're like a stallion or even a mare, they'll kick you to death. When the horse, you ever seen a horse be broken in, the rider gets on the horse and he rides the horse until the horse finally gives in. And it takes a long time till the horse finally gives in and realizes who's boss, and then becomes submissive um, to the person who broke the horse and all to humans. So you were born with spirit and courage and ability and coping skills and a fire within you. I like to say there's an ember burning inside of everyone. It just needs to be ignited. When the horse is broken, people are kind of like that too. Um, they live as narcissists, manipulators, evil people, and they become weaker and submissive, and they give in, and they accept what's told to them. They accept what to do, and even if they see others getting hurt, they do nothing about it because they become weak like a horse. They just sit there and bow their heads and do as they're told. Don't be like that. Be like the horse that doesn't get broken. And you see, every now and then, you see a movie of a horse that refuses, and it fights and it fights and it fights, and eventually, even if it does get broken in for a while, I remember seeing a few movies like this, true stories where the horse was broken in for a while, like for a couple of years, and I use it for racing or something. Then the horse escapes and goes back into the wilderness as a very strong and courageous horse, and lives the way it used to live, you know, defiant of humans. And that's the way you should be: strong, capable, and able. And and always, if it's a stadium, when he goes back into the wild, he gets all his mares back and everything. So, yeah, very cool to see animals giving a good example that humans should follow. So, if you got something to do, that's where you need your courage, and it'll make you feel so much better, complete when you do it. I made that courage video, and then I thought, a thought popped into my head. And you get a lot of people say a lot of bad things and things about you, and how they're going to sort you out and fix you, and how they're going to protect you. One of the narcissist tricks too, by the way, to keep you away from someone, is to make you fear that person, and then constantly tell you that they're going to protect you from that person, but that person's not your enemy, it's a good person. But to keep you away from the good person, they lie to you and tell you they're protecting you against that person. And a lot of people will tell you, if the situation came up, they'd fight that person, give that person a hiding, protect you, and various things like that. What the thought that popped into my head was, well, why didn't they? Why didn't they fight that person? I remember being at New World last weekend, I think it was, last Friday maybe, and this girl, I don't know if, I won't use a real name, Kitten, she was coming out with this guy probably around my age, I think, and when they got to the vehicle, he was telling her nasty things about me, obviously, because she started looking scared. And when he got to the car, she quickly jumped into his vehicle, and then he was brutally throwing the groceries in the back seat of the car, and I realised he was scared stuff. He thought he was going to get a hiding because the car wasn't too that far away from the car I was in. And I was looking at him, and I was thinking, you're terrified. And when I go around the lake and I see the weasel, the other guy who's manipulating her and pretending to protect her, when I've seen him maybe anywhere between 6 and 12 times in the last 6 months. And every single time I've glared at him, I've pushed in his way. One time going in the footpath not far from the house, he was jogging towards me, and I pushed my bike out in front of him so that he'd have to confront me, and he crashed into the bushes instead rather than fight. There was a time he fell at my feet. There's things like that. You can guarantee when he's at home with Kitten in Waimate Place, he sits there and he tells her how he's going to protect her, and how tough he is, and how brave he is, and how he's going to sort me out, and he's going to put me in my place. But every single time it's happened, when she's not in view, because she's never seen, only once I've seen them together, out of a car, and that was in a crowded place, he never has the courage to do anything. He's always scared, always. And that's the same as that guy who was with her in the car. I'm using her as an example because she's wanted to do character assassination against me for the last 13 years with her parents, with her family. Every single man she's with who's supposed to be protecting her and pretending, and they're all narcissists. And it's very much like the Brian Wilson situation with Eugene Landy, but they've had different various narcissist therapists brainwashing her and drugging her. And every time she's with a guy, the guy's always scared. Even her ex-husband, a whole lot of scared. They act brave, they talk brave, they strut around. And sometimes when I see them and I look at them, and they strut, and they see me, and then every single one of them is Dutch courage. And in her situation, she was part of a criminal group She doesn't realize the amazing power that she has. She knows all about the criminal group. She knows everything they've done and everything they in the past, and she also knows everything they've done to her and brainwashing her, drugging her, manipulating her. How do you think the public are going to feel when they find out what the weasel and their brilliant delivery have done to her? You know, if there was a vigilante, the people would go around there, even the gangsters go around there and beat the crap out of them. They get the hiding of their lives. And her mother, for what her mother's done to her father, her gutless manager father, all of them would pay so heavily for the hurt and harm they've done to her. So all she has to do is go to the place and a whole lot of ways to her. She is ultimately power. She has the power to destroy the whole entire lot of them. And that is why they want her terrified of me or anyone in authority. See, she has never gone to the place. Now, the reason she's never gone to the place must be something they've told her, which I have no idea. But the point is they've told her that she won't go to the place, and therefore she won't. She doesn't realize the power that she has to destroy the whole lot of them, and how incredibly terrified they are of her. She's scared of what they'll do to her, but they're terrified of what she'll do to them. The one in power in the situation is not them. The one in power is her. She has all the power. So if you're in a situation and you're in a criminal group and the criminal group is bossing you around and telling you you have to do this and you have to do that, realize that as long as you know the goings on of the criminal group, all the members of the criminal group, what they've been up to, what they've done, especially in the past, and even if you were active with them, you were just coerced into it. You're innocent. So you need to get in your head, you don't have no reason to be scared of them, but they're terrified of you breaking away and telling everyone what they did. So the power is not in them, the power is in you. And that's the thing you need to realize when you're in a situation where you think they have control when they don't. It's you that has control. They're just pretending to you don't. It's like the horse tied to the chair. The horse won't walk away because the horse thinks it's stuck there. It can't get away as long as it's tied to anything. So, see what I'm getting at? Something to think about.